I recently made a video about the MacBook Neo and how it performs for music production. You had some questions about that in the comments, which I'm going to try to answer for you now. This question is about music production with Serum 2 and how it performs there. We'll see that now. I've prepared a project here where I've loaded many Serum instances, but not just the same preset every time, but a little bit more realistically. I've loaded various things, but I also made sure to take a few that really put a heavy load on the computer, right? For example, this sound here already pulls 115 voices when I play a single note. You can see it down here. And that's, of course, well, I wanted to challenge the computer a bit, right? Then let's see, I'll turn on a few voices one by one. Let's try it. And there we have the first dropout already. It's recovered again. I'll try to play along live here to see if that works too. Yeah, and it's stuttering again. It's not running quite smoothly. So with these complex Serum presets all at once, it does eventually start to stutter. But I've also read that some of these presets are so complex that other computers can't even handle one track. In that respect, I think it's not such a bad result at all. So if I were to go and load one of these simpler presets many times, then I would assume that you'd get much further with it. So now I already have 16 tracks and it's still running well. Then let's double it again. It's spinning a bit there. Well, apparently I can't load 32 instances of Serum, even with the simple preset. It just seems to need too much RAM then. Alright, then we've tested that too. I wouldn't really let that stop me though, because in practice, you rarely have so many instances of the plugin. And even if you do, you can always freeze the tracks. And then I have plenty of headroom again to be able to continue working. So I would say for beginners, absolutely no problem. The more intensively you want to work with it, the more compromises you'll probably have to make. All right, next we'll take a look at productions in Ableton with sound generation. For this, I have an Ableton project from Paul, a tutor here, who recently did a workshop on the topic of sampling. You can also find the project in the blog if you want to try it out yourself. And yeah, it's actually running quite well here, I'd say. An average of 42% CPU usage. And there are also quite a few effects in here. Here, for example, he's built quite a few chains. This here is also a good example. Yeah, it works. So you can definitely do that with it. Next, we have a question here about eDrums with Superior Drummer 3 and if that works. For this, I've just loaded Pearl Default here in Superior Drummer. And I don't have an eDrum kit here right now, just this little MIDI keyboard. Yeah, other people can do that better than me, but I'd say it works. We're at a buffer size of 128. But I'd strongly assume that we can also go down to 32 here. Yes, that's still running too. So you can easily run one instance of Superior Drummer, probably 2 or 3 more even. That's not a problem, I think. We can also just duplicate it again real quick for fun. So that still works. 3 instances also still work. Now it's getting a tiny bit slow, but if we record something on here once, it lagged a bit at the start, but I suspect it was just because the library wasn't fully initialized yet. Now we'll just copy the clip over. Not played that well by me, but it works. So you can definitely use it well for that. All right, the next question is about the jack connection. On the MacBook Neo, it's not specifically optimized for high impedance headphones like on the MacBook Pro. And I've already got the HD 660S2 here, and I want to try it out with that. It has an impedance of 300 ohms. And how that sounds on the MacBook Neo, and if it even gets loud enough, and so on, let's have a quick listen. Okay, so it definitely gets loud enough. Now I'll just compare that with a MacBook Pro. So maybe the MacBook Pro sounds a tiny bit fuller still, but I'd say for the vast majority of studio headphones, it should be no problem. There are certainly much more sophisticated headphones though, where it does make a difference after all. In the last video, I suspected that it would reach its limits if you load many large libraries at the same time. And I want to try that out now. For that, I have prepared a small project here. These are 4 instances of Kontakt loaded with various libraries. Here, for example, the brass ensemble, here the emotive strings, and here the string ensemble, and also the Amati viola. And I'll also show you the performance meter from Cubase now. Here it is already. And then let's see if it can play this project. That doesn't look so good already. Eventually it catches itself. But it continues to stutter. So I would say that we have simply reached the limits there. We can also take a quick look at the activity monitor to see what's going on. And you can see that quite well in the memory pressure. It basically shows not just how full the RAM is, but also how intensively it's being used. Exactly, it's explained a bit more here as well. And the higher this memory pressure is, the harder it becomes to work smoothly with the system. And now I've loaded so many large libraries at once that it's just really reaching its limits. So a single instrument probably still works. Like if I try to play this viola here now, that still works. But as soon as it involves several tracks at the same time, then it's too much relatively quickly. It's not really surprising, 8 gigabytes are simply the limitation of this system. I wouldn't necessarily let that discourage me now. For most people, it's probably not a problem, but once you go in the direction of orchestral libraries, I would simply recommend a larger system. That's also a great transition here to the last topic. Namely, someone writes here that the MacBook Air M4 for 170 euros more looks quite attractive right now. 16 gigabytes of RAM, M4 CPU, background lighting for the keys, a better trackpad, better connections, for example, also with Thunderbolt, and a larger battery. That's something you can consider. The M4 is still available. Who knows for how long? Soon there might only the M5 at some point. That currently costs about 1,200 euros. That'll be difficult then. The MacBook Neo looks quite good against it, but yeah, it's definitely still a good consideration right now. My conclusion on the MacBook Neo hasn't really changed since the last video, I'd say. It's still a great device, especially for beginners if you want to focus mainly on mixing. We looked at the limits a bit today when it comes to music production, but I wouldn't let that discourage me at all for now. If in doubt, I can always freeze particularly complex sound generators and then continue working. So yeah, great device, excellent value for money. Yeah, if you're interested in these topics, then feel free to subscribe to the channel, but also check out hofercollege.com. We provide online courses in audio engineering and music production, covering mixing, recording, producing, mastering, all those topics. And yeah, I'm sure there's something exciting for you there too. Now I'd be interested to know, have you also had experience with the MacBook Neo yet, or do you have any more questions? Then please definitely let me know in the comments below. Alright, see you then.